So I've already talked to you about some of the larger scale solutions used to help solve some of these problems, such as planting trees or enlisting an army of 10,000 women to plant trees. But one of the things that I like to do, for me personally, that helps me to deal with the magnitude of these issues and with studying things like world hunger, is to figure out solutions that I can implement in my own life. And so I want to share with you some solutions that will help you to contribute positively to the environment through your food choices. One of the ways is essentially creating a paradigm shift in how we think about agriculture. Standard U.S. practice requires about 45,000 square feet to feed one person and about 10,000 square feet to feed a vegetarian. Although vegetarianism isn't necessarily a sustainable solution just because of the amount of land required, looking at things like creating bio-intensive agriculture, so creating a farm where there is a lot of biodiversity, a lot of genetic diversity on the farm allows you to feed more people in less space. This is just an example of a farm that can feed on about 2,000 to 4,000 square feet an average vegetarian diet. But it's also important to note that the more local you can eat, the more genetic diversity you're going to build into your diet, but also you're going to be able to support your local economy. And one of the ways you can eat locally is to enlist in what's called a community-supported agriculture program. Generally, these are associated with organic farms. For example, the CSA that I participate in here in Auburn, it's a farm about 6 miles down the road, and I can actually go and see the plants. I can interact with the farmer. There's actually a blueberry field, which is really lovely in the summertime, so you can go and pick a gallon of blueberries as a part of the CSA. But what it is that the community members come together and we each pay a fee at the beginning of the growing season so that the farmer has his money that he's going to make at the beginning of the season, and then we all bear the burden of whatever is able to be grown. So for example, 3 summers ago we had a large drought. 3 summers ago we had a large drought here in Auburn, and the whole CSA, we all shared in the effects of that drought, so we all got less food. But what a CSA allows the farmer to do is to plant and grow things according to the plant's growing season. They don't have to use as many commercial farming techniques because there's not as much pressure to produce large quantities, but we all share in the agricultural benefit. So each week we all get a bag of vegetables, or sometimes it's 2 or 3 bags of vegetables that the farmer was able to grow and harvest during that week. You can also, if you don't have access to a local CSA, most cities and towns have farmers markets that you can go to. And essentially, one of the ways you can decrease the effect of your eating habits on the environment is to get as close to the source of your food as possible. So buying directly from a farmer, or even growing food yourself, gardening yourself, will help you to contribute less to the environmental degradation that occurs because of commercial farming. Another method is to eat seasonally. So find out what's in season and try to eat according to that schedule. So eating kiwis in the middle of December, that's not eating seasonally because those kiwis have had to be harvested and imported probably from an equatorial country. And so that food is traveling really far from the farmer to your plate. But if you try to eat locally and eat seasonally, you'll be more in touch with the cycles of food in your area, and also more in touch with the growing season and how seasons affect what food is available. There's also tips to eat less meat and more plants. Although vegetarianism isn't necessarily the only solution. Eating less meat tends to, when you grow a calorie of meat, it takes more energy, more oil, more land destruction to grow 1 calorie of meat than it does to grow 1 calorie of plant. But I think it's important to note that meat is essential to some diets. Professor Coots talked a lot about how most pregnant women in the world suffer from anemia. one of the biggest ways to combat anemia and to build more iron into your diet is to eat meat. So I don't want you to think that I'm advocating that everyone should be a vegetarian, but I will say that the average American diet has a much, much larger proportion of meat than we've ever seen in history, and you can see the effects of that meat on things like our heart disease rates, our obesity rates, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd like to end this lecture on a quote by an author, Michael Pollan. You'll notice that his books are on our suggested reading list. But I think one of the biggest things you can do is to be mindful of the food that you consume. And the quote from Michael Pollan that really sticks with me is to eat food, not too much, and mostly plants. When you think about food in that way, I think it really contributes and helps to, I guess, bring teeth to some of the topics we've been talking about, because I know from experience that of teaching these topics and learning about them, it can sometimes be very, very overwhelming when you're learning about world hunger and you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many hungry people and I'm just one person, what can I do? And I think it's important to link that you can make everyday decisions of what you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that can begin to positively contribute to helping to preserve our environment so that people can grow crops that they need to eat, which helps people to feed the hungry poor. So I wanted to end on this note because I think it's important to realize that as a student, there are decisions you can make right now in your life today that can help you to begin to contribute positively to this cause. Thank you.